As the dust settled around the jagged edges of Ceres Station, Sheriff Jack Holden adjusted his magnetic boots and patted the modified plasma revolver at his hip. The warning lights flashed red across the dome as the station's AI announced in its monotone voice, "Proximity alert. Unidentified vessels approaching. Estimated time to intercept 15 minutes. Jack spat into the recycling unit beside him. Damn recti pirates. Third raid this month. Through the viewport, he could see them coming. Sleek, predatory ships, with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The alien pirates thought the human settlements in the belt were easy pickings, just like they always did. The recti, with their forearms and chitinous exoskeletons, considered themselves the apex predators of the system. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's cobbled-together mining equipment and retrofitted defense systems. "Sheriff, evacuation protocols initiated," the AI continued. "Security recommends immediate withdrawal to emergency bunkers." Jack pulled his hat, an authentic Stetson from Earth, passed down through 5 generations, lower over his eyes. "Belay that order. Seal the civilian quarters, but I ain't running." The station administrator, Chen, rushed into the observation deck, his face pale. "Jack, they've brought a dreadnought this time. We can't fight that." "Don't plan to fight it fair," Jack replied, checking the charge on his revolver. The weapon looked like an antique six-shooter from Earth's Wild West, but its cylinder housed miniature fusion cells instead of bullets, and its barrel contained focusing crystals salvaged from a recti scout ship he'd ambushed last year. "But the Galactic Union," Chen started. "Is 16 light hours away," Jack finished for him. "Out here we make our own justice." He'd never told Chen or the others about his childhood on the failing terraforming colonies of Mars, where he'd spent nights reading dog-eared copies of dime store novels about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. He'd never explained how those stories of frontier justice had shaped him more than all the tactical manuals the Union had provided with his badge. The recti had never faced a lawman who understood that sometimes justice needed nothing more than steady nerves, clever tactics, and 6 well-placed shots to set things right. Jack strode toward the airlock, his spurs modified to work as emergency thrusters in 0G, jingling with each step. Time to teach these bugs that humans don't take kindly to claim jumpers. The pirates would be expecting defense drones, automated turrets, or perhaps a desperate evacuation. They wouldn't be expecting a lone human with a 6-shooter and a plan straight out of Tombstone, and that was exactly why Jack Holden, Sheriff of the Asteroid Belt, was about to win. "Wow, our space sheriff is already facing his first battle. Where are you watching this adventure from? Comment below with your city or country. I want to see how far this story is reaching. Let's continue following Jack Holden on his mission to protect the Asteroid Belt." The first time Jack Holden had set foot on Ceres Station, 15 years ago, he'd been a fresh-faced Union Marshal with a shiny badge and a regulation plasma pistol. Now, as he stepped through the outer airlock and onto the surface of the dwarf planet, he was something else entirely, a lawman forged by the belt itself. Jack activated his helmet's tactical display, scanning the cratered landscape for signs of the approaching recti ships. The belt was quiet now, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. The pirates had a pattern: hit fast, grab what they could, and disappear into the vast emptiness between Mars and Jupiter before Union forces could respond. "Sheriff, I've got movement on the dark side of Palace," came Zoe's voice through his comms. The young woman had been a communications officer on a Union cruiser before deserting to the belt. Now she served as Jack's eyes and ears across the scattered settlements. "How many ships?" Jack asked, his breath fogging slightly in his helmet. "3 raiders and what looks like a harvester. They're moving slow. Probably think we don't have sensors that far out." Jack smiled. The Union had never bothered to extend their monitoring network fully into the belt. Too expensive for just a bunch of rocks and renegade miners, they'd said. But Jack had spent years cobbling together a detection system from salvaged parts and abandoned satellites. The recti still hadn't figured that out. "Alert Vesta and Hygeia," he ordered. "Tell them to go dark. No transmissions, minimal power. Signatures." As he spoke, Jack moved toward his ship, an old Union patrol craft he'd modified extensively. The Mustang, as he called it, didn't look like much. Its hull was patched in places, and its original sleek lines were broken up by additional thrusters and weapon mounts, but like its namesake, it was tough and fast where it counted. Inside the cockpit, Jack removed his helmet and ran a hand through his graying hair. A holographic display flickered to life, showing his jurisdiction, a three-dimensional map of the main belt, with human settlements highlighted in blue. Nearly 40 outposts, mining operations, and research stations spread across millions of cubic kilometers of space. The Union had given him this impossible beat because they thought it would keep him out of their hair. They'd never expected him to actually patrol it effectively. "Zoe, give me the status on the Recti raids this month," he said, powering up. The Mustang's engines, 3 confirmed attacks, the research outpost on Juno, the water processing facility on Pallas, and the lithium mines on 16 Psyche. They've gotten bolder since that new leader took over. Jack nodded. The Recti operated like the old Earth bandits he'd read about. They had a hierarchy, territories, and now they had a new boss trying to make a name for himself. "Any word from Union Command about our requests for additional defense systems?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Same as always," Zoe replied, her voice bitter. "The belt is low priority compared to the inner planets. They suggested we consider relocating to Mars if we feel unsafe." Jack snorted. The belt colonies had been founded by people who couldn't afford life on Earth or Mars, or who wanted freedom from Union bureaucracy. Telling them to relocate was like telling birds to stop flying because the sky was dangerous. The Mustang lifted off from Ceres' low-gravity surface with a gentle push. Jack kept the thrust minimal. No need to announce his departure with a big energy signature. "I'm heading to intercept," he told Zoe. "Keep me posted on their movements." "Jack," she said, her voice softer now, "they've got a dreadnought this time. That's military grade. Where are pirates getting that kind of hardware?" It was a good question. The Vrektai were scavengers and raiders, not a standing army. Their ships were usually cobbled together like his own, stolen pieces and salvaged tech. "Someone's backing them," Jack said, the realization settling in his gut like a cold stone. "Someone wants the belt destabilized." As the Mustang accelerated toward the outer reaches of the belt, Jack checked his revolver again. The weapon had been his father's, one of the few things the old man had left him besides debts and bitter memories. Jack had modified it extensively over the years, replacing the firing mechanism with miniaturized fusion technology and adding focusing crystals to the barrel. It could now fire 6 different types of energy projectiles, from stunning pulses to armor-piercing plasma bolts. 6 shots. In the stories he'd grown up with, that had always been enough for the heroes of the Wild West. Out here in the Wild Black, Jack made sure it was enough for him too. The first signs of the Recti appeared. On his sensors 3 hours later, energy signatures moving through the darkness near Pallas. Jack cut his engines and let the Mustang drift, using only minimal maneuvering thrusters to position himself in the shadow of a smaller asteroid. Through his viewport, he finally saw them. Sleek, predatory ships with hulls that seemed to absorb light. The Recti vessels were biological in appearance, with curves and protrusions that reminded Jack of insect carapaces. At their center was the dreadnought, at least 3 times the size of the raiders, bristling with weapon ports. "Zoe," he whispered into his comm, though there was no need to lower his voice in the vacuum of space. "I've got eyes on them. That dreadnought isn't Recti design. It's Union military, or at least it was." "That's impossible," she replied. "The Union would never sell to pirates." "They wouldn't," Jack agreed. "But there are plenty of corrupt officials who might look the other way if a decommissioned vessel disappeared from a scrapyard." As he watched, the Recti ships adjusted course, heading directly toward the mining. Operation on Vesta, the largest and most profitable human settlement in the belt. Jack's hand moved to the Mustang's controls. He could try to engage them here, but even with his ship's modifications, he couldn't take on 4 vessels, especially not with that dreadnought in the mix. No, this called for the old ways, the methods of lawmen who'd been outgunned and outnumbered. "On the frontier. Zoe, alert Vesta, tell them the Recti are coming, but they're not to engage. I want them to look vulnerable." "You want them to what?" Zoe's voice rose in pitch. "Trust me," Jack said, already plotting his course. "I'm setting up an ambush. These bugs are about to learn why you don't bring your whole gang to rob a single bank. As the Mustang silently accelerated on a parallel course to the Recti fleet, Jack smiled grimly. The belt was his territory now, and like the sheriffs of old, he knew every canyon, hideout and trail, or in this case every gravity well, radiation belt and asteroid field. The Recti thought humans were easy prey because their technology was superior. They were about to learn that in the belt, just like in the Old West, it wasn't the fastest gun that won the day. It was the smartest shooter. Vesta Station clung to the asteroid's surface like a barnacle on a whale's back. The second largest object in the belt had become humanity's most productive mining operation, with nearly 5,000 colonists extracting rare minerals from its crust. From orbit, Jack could see the sprawling complex of habitation domes, processing facilities, and landing pads, all of them now dimmed to minimal power as per his instructions. "Status report," Jack said into his comm as the Mustang drifted silently behind a smaller asteroid in Vesta's orbit. "All civilians are in the emergency shelters," came the reply from Marcus Chen, Vesta's chief administrator. "Mining operations suspended. We've powered down everything except life support and minimal comms." "Good. What about those old mass drivers on the South Ridge?" There was a pause. "The Union decommissioned those years ago, Sheriff. They're not operational." Jack smiled. "That's what the Union thinks. I've seen Kowalski's maintenance logs. I know you folks have been keeping them functional off the books." Another pause, longer this time. "How did you, never mind. Yes, we've maintained them, but they're mining equipment, not weapons." "Today they're whatever we need them to be," Jack replied. "Get your best operators on them, but keep them powered down until I give the signal." The mass drivers had been installed during Vesta's early days to launch ore containers into orbit. Officially, they'd been replaced by more efficient shuttle systems. Unofficially, the colonists had kept them as a last-ditch defense option, something the Union would have frowned upon if they'd known. Jack checked his tactical display. The Recti fleet was approaching Vesta from the sunward side, probably hoping the glare would mask their approach. It was a good strategy against automated defense systems, but Jack's eyes weren't fooled. "Zoe, patch me through to all belt settlements, encrypted channel." A moment later, he heard the click that indicated he was broadcasting. "This is Sheriff Holden. We have a Recti raiding party approaching Vesta with military-grade hardware. All outposts maintain communication blackout until further notice. If you don't hear from me in 6 hours, implement emergency protocol Sierra." Sierra was the evacuation plan they'd developed for worst-case scenarios, a complete abandonment of the belt's fixed settlements in favor of the mobile mining platforms deeper in the system. Jack had never had to use it, and he didn't plan to start today. As the Recti ships drew closer to Vesta, Jack maneuvered the Mustang into position behind a cluster of orbital debris, mining waste that had accumulated over decades. Perfect cover for what he had in mind. The pirate fleet had split into a standard attack formation. The three smaller raiders spread out to approach from different angles, while the dreadnought held position farther back, ready to provide fire support. It was textbook Union military doctrine, further evidence that someone with formal training was calling the shots. Jack opened a small compartment beneath his control panel and removed 6 small objects that looked like metal spheres, each about the size of a golf ball. He'd salvaged the gravitational disruptors from an abandoned research station near Jupiter. The Union scientists had been trying to develop non-lethal crowd control devices. Jack had repurposed them for a different application. "Marcus, I need your people to send out a distress call. Make it convincing. Tell them your main reactor is having containment issues and you've had to power down defense systems." "Oh, you want us to bait them?" Marcus sounded incredulous. "I want them to think they're getting lucky," Jack corrected. "Pirates are opportunists. Let's give them an opportunity they can't resist." Minutes later, a distress signal began broadcasting from Vesta on an open channel, the digital equivalent of shouting for help. Jack watched as the Recti ships immediately adjusted their approach, accelerating toward the seemingly vulnerable station. "They took the bait," Zoe confirmed. "All 4 ships are converging on Vesta. ETA 3 minutes. Jack fired up the Mustang's engines. Time to crash their party. He guided his ship out from behind the debris field. approaching from above, the orbital plane where the recti would be less likely to look. As he closed in, he could see the raiders more clearly, their insectoid design reflecting their creator's biology. The recti themselves resembled mantises, with 4 arms and chitinous exoskeletons. They'd evolved on a high-gravity world, making them naturally stronger than humans, but slower in low-G environments. The dreadnought was different, clearly of human design, though modified with recti technology. Its Union markings had been crudely painted over, but Jack could still make out the designation UES Vigilant on its hull. That ship had been reported lost with all hands during a Jupiter patrol 5 years ago. Apparently, the reports had been greatly exaggerated. Jack activated his targeting system and selected the first of his gravitational disruptors. The plan was simple, but risky. The disruptors would create localized gravity wells, temporary, but intense enough to throw off the raiders' navigation systems and, if he was lucky, damage their engines. Marcus, stand by on those mass drivers. Target the coordinates I'm sending now, but don't fire until my mark. Standing by, came the tense reply. But Sheriff, if we miss, then I'll be having a very bad day, Jack finished for him. Just be ready. The recti ships were now in position around Vesta, the raiders descending toward the primary landing facilities, while the dreadnought maintained orbit. Jack could imagine the scene inside those ships, the 4-armed pirates preparing their boarding equipment, checking weapons, anticipating an easy raid on a crippled human outpost. Jack targeted the first raider and launched a disruptor. The small sphere shot from the Mustang's external launcher, streaking toward its target like a miniature comet. The pirates didn't even attempt to evade. They probably thought it was just debris. The disruptor detonated 50 meters from the raider's hull. There was no explosion, no flash of light, just a sudden violent distortion of space as the device generated a temporary gravity well with the force of a small moon. The effect on the raider was immediate and catastrophic. The ship lurched sideways, its port thrusters suddenly firing at maximum as the navigation systems tried to compensate for the impossible gravitational readings. "What the hell was that?" Marcus demanded over the comm. "Old Earth trick," Jack replied, already targeting the second raider. "It's called a sucker punch." The recti fleet responded quickly, the dreadnought turning its massive weapon arrays toward the source of the attack. Jack launched 2 more disruptors in quick succession, then threw the Mustang into a steep dive to avoid the barrage of energy weapons that lit up space around him. One of the disruptors missed its target, but the other caught the second raider squarely. The ship's hull buckled under the gravitational stress, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches. It wasn't destroyed, but it wouldn't be joining the fight anytime soon. The third raider and the dreadnought were now fully alert, their weapon systems tracking the Mustang as Jack weaved through a hail of plasma fire. His ship shuddered as a glancing hit scored its starboard side. "Damage report," he barked at the ship's AI. "Starboard maneuvering thrusters at 60%. Hull integrity at 87%. Weapon systems nominal." Better than he'd expected. Jack launched another disruptor toward the third raider, but this time the ship was ready, executing a tight evasive maneuver that sent the device harmlessly past. "Sheriff, they're deploying landing craft." Zoe's voice was urgent in his ear. "The dreadnought is launching shuttles toward the main dome," Jack cursed. He'd hoped to disable more of their ships before they could attempt a landing. "Marcus, power up those mass drivers now. Target the shuttles." "Powering up," Marcus replied. 30 seconds to operational status." 30 seconds was too long. Jack swung the Mustang around and dove toward Vesta's surface, ignoring the warning alarms as the ship's hull temperature spiked from the rapid atmospheric entry. The dreadnought's weapons couldn't track him this close to the asteroid, but the third raider was in hot pursuit. Through his viewport, Jack could see 3 recti shuttles descending toward Vesta's main habitation dome. They were sleek, predatory craft, designed for rapid deployment of boarding parties. If they reached the surface, the pirates would have access to the station before the mass drivers could be brought online. Jack made a split-second decision. He targeted his last 2 disruptors, not at the ships but at the surface of Vesta itself, just ahead of the descending shuttles. "Marcus, tell your people to brace for seismic activity." What are you? Jack didn't wait for the response. He launched both disruptors simultaneously, then yanked the Mustang into a steep climb that strained the ship's structural integrity to its limits. Behind him, the disruptors struck Vesta's surface and activated. The effect was more dramatic than even Jack had anticipated. The twin gravity wells tore into the asteroid's regolith, sending a massive plume of dust and rock into the path of the descending shuttles. It was like flying into a shotgun blast. Two of the shuttles were immediately engulfed, their hulls shredded by high-velocity debris. The third managed to pull up, but its evasive maneuver sent it directly into the now active mass driver's line of fire. There was a brilliant flash as the electromagnetic mass driver launched its payload, not the usual ore container, but what looked like a solid slug of refined nickel iron. The improvised projectile struck the shuttle amidships, tearing it in half. "Direct hit," Marcus shouted, the professional administrator's composure momentarily forgotten in the excitement of battle. Jack had no time to celebrate. The raider that had been pursuing him was still on his tail, its weapons finding their range. The Mustang shuddered as another hit connected, this one more damaging than the last. "Hull breach in aft compartment," the AI reported calmly. "Emergency seals engaged, weapon systems offline." Jack gritted his teeth. Without weapons, he couldn't take on the raider directly, but he still had one trick left, one that harkened back to the desperate gambits of the lawmen whose stories had shaped him. "Marcus, keep those mass drivers firing at anything that approaches the surface. Zoe, broadcast this on all frequencies, including the Recti command channel." Jack cleared his throat, then spoke in a drawl that would have made Wyatt Earp proud. "This is Sheriff Jack Holden to the Recti fleet. You boys picked the wrong rock to raid today. I'm giving you one chance to collect your wounded and clear out of my jurisdiction. Otherwise, what happened to those shuttles is just a taste of what's coming." He cut the transmission and held his breath, watching as the raider behind him continued its pursuit. For a moment, it seemed like his bluff had failed. Then, abruptly, the raider broke off, turning sharply to rendezvous with the damaged ships. On his tactical display, Jack could see the dreadnought changing course as well, moving to retrieve the crippled raiders. They were withdrawing. "I don't believe it," Zoe whispered over the comm. "They're actually retreating." Jack allowed himself a small smile. Pirates are businessmen at heart. The risk just stopped being worth the reward. As he guided the damaged Mustang toward Vesta's landing facilities, Jack knew this wasn't over. The Recti would be back, and next time they'd be better prepared. But today, at least, the belt had held. A sheriff had faced down a gang of outlaws with nothing but guts, guile, and a few tricks up his sleeve, just like in the stories. High noon had come to Vesta, and when the dust settled, the good guys were still standing. 3 days after the battle at Vesta, Jack stood in the makeshift repair bay of Hygeia Station, watching as technicians swarmed over the damaged hull of the Mustang. The fourth largest asteroid in the belt hosted the smallest permanent settlement. Just 800 colonists who specialized in water extraction from the asteroid's surprisingly ice-rich interior. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for in technical ingenuity. "We've patched the hull breaches," said Eliza Wong, Hygeia's chief engineer. She wiped grease from her hands with a rag that had probably once been white. "But the starboard maneuvering thrusters are shot. We'll need to fabricate new ones from scratch." Jack nodded, running a hand along the scarred exterior of his ship. "How long?" 3 days minimum, and that's with every machinist on the station working overtime. "You've got 1 day," Jack replied, his eyes still on the Mustang. "The Recti won't lick their wounds for long." Eliza sighed. "Sheriff, I know you're in a hurry, but physics doesn't care about your schedule. 1 day is impossible." Jack finally turned to face her. "Nothing's impossible in the belt. That's why we're out here instead of back on Earth or Mars. 1 day." "Eliza!" Before she could protest further, Jack's comm unit chimed. "Sheriff, you need to see this," came Zoe's voice, tense and urgent. "On my way." The command center of Hygeia Station was smaller than Vesta's, just a circular room with a dozen workstations surrounding a central holographic display. When Jack entered, all eyes turned to him. "What have we got?" he asked, moving to the central display where Zoe stood. "Long-range scans from our sensor buoys near Palace," she replied. manipulating the holographic controls. The display shifted to show a section of space near the asteroid palace, where several ships were gathered. The Vrektai fleet is growing. They're counting 7 raiders now, plus the dreadnought. Jack studied the image. They're recruiting, calling in favors from other clans. That's not all, Zoe continued, zooming in on one particular ship. This one arrived 6 hours ago. It's not Vrektai design. The ship in question was sleeker than the insectoid vessels of the Vrektai, with smooth lines and what appeared to be advanced stealth plating. Jack recognized it immediately and his blood ran cold. Union Black Ops, he said quietly. Specifically, a Phantom-class covert operations vessel. Not supposed to exist according to official records. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Vrektai weren't just pirates, they were proxies for someone in the Union government. Why would the Union be backing pirates against their own colonies? Asked Marcus Chen, who had traveled from Vesta to coordinate defense efforts. Because officially they're not, Jack replied. The belt is a problem for the inner planets. We're independent-minded. We control valuable resources, and we don't follow Union regulations to the letter. Some faction in the government probably decided it would be convenient if the belt colonies suffered enough that they had to beg for official military protection, which would come with strings attached. Zoe finished the thought. Full Union oversight, resource quotas, the works. Jack nodded grimly. And if a few thousand colonists die in pirate raids before the cavalry arrives, well, that's just the price of doing business on the frontier. He studied the display again, counting ships and estimating firepower. The odds were worse than he'd feared. Even with the mass drivers on Vesta and the limited defenses of the other settlements, they couldn't hope to repel a force this size through conventional means. They're gathering at Palace, Marcus observed. Why there? It's the logical staging. Area for an attack on Hygeia, Jack replied. Close enough to strike quickly, far enough that our sensors wouldn't normally detect them until it was too late. But we did detect them, Zoe pointed out, thanks to the sensor network you've been building. Jack allowed himself a small smile. The Union thinks the belt is just a bunch of rocks and renegades. They forget that we've had 15 years to prepare for something like this. He straightened up, decision made. Zoe, send word to every settlement in the belt. I want every armed ship we have to rendezvous at these coordinates. He marked a point in space halfway between Hygeia and Palace, and I want every civilian to begin evacuation to the deep belt. Shelters. You're forming a militia, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. I'm deputizing every ship captain who's willing to fight, Jack corrected. Just like the posses in the old days. Sheriff, Eliza interjected, having followed Jack to the command center. Even with every armed ship in the belt, we're outgunned. Those are military-grade vessels with trained crews. We're not going to outgun them, Jack agreed. We're going to outsmart them. He turned to address the entire room. The Vrektai think in 3 dimensions because they evolved in space. The Union thinks in terms of military doctrine and overwhelming force, but we're belt colonists. We think in terms of survival against impossible odds. That's our advantage. Jack moved to a console and pulled up a detailed map of the space between Hygeia and Palace. For 3 years I've been mapping every gravity well, radiation pocket and debris field in this sector. Places where sensors get fuzzy, where navigation computers struggle, where conventional tactics fall apart. He highlighted several areas on the map. These are what the old cowboys would have called box canyons and quicksand pits, places where we can lead our enemies and trap them. A classic ambush, Marcus said, beginning to understand. Exactly. But first, we need to make Hygeia look like the perfect target. Jack turned to Eliza. Instead of fixing my ship, I need your people to start modifying these mining drones. Here's what we're going to do. 48 hours later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Mustang, still damaged, but flight-worthy enough for what he had planned. Around him, displayed on his tactical screen, were 27 ships, every armed vessel the belt colonies could muster. Most were mining ships with hastily mounted weapons, but a few were genuine gunboats maintained by the larger settlements for security. All ships reporting ready, Sheriff. Zoe's voice came through the comm. She was coordinating from Hygeia's command center, which had been converted into a makeshift war room. Remember, people, Jack broadcast to the assembled fleet, We're not trying to win a straight fight here. We're leading them into a trap. Stick to the plan and don't be heroes." He took a deep breath. "Zoe, start the broadcast." Moments later, Hygeia Station began transmitting on all frequencies. A distress call reporting a catastrophic life support failure and requesting immediate evacuation assistance. According to the broadcast, most of the station's population was incapacitated, and defense systems were offline to divert power to emergency life support. It was bait, just as they had used at Vesta, but on a larger scale. And to make it more convincing, Hygeia's external lights were dimming in sections and venting what appeared to be atmosphere, actually just water vapor, but from a distance it would look like a station in crisis. "Movement from the Recti. Fleet," Zoe reported. "They're taking the bait. All ships are accelerating toward Hygeia." Jack nodded. "Right on schedule. All ships, move to your designated positions. Remember, make it look like you're attempting to evacuate the station." The Belt militia scattered, each ship heading to its assigned location in the complex three-dimensional battlefield Jack had designed. Some positioned themselves near the box canyons, dense debris fields where the Recti ships would have trouble maneuvering. Others headed for the quicksand, areas where unusual gravitational interactions between asteroids created navigation hazards. Jack guided the Mustang to a position behind a small, unnamed asteroid. From here, he could observe the approaching Recti fleet without being detected. The enemy ships moved in a tight formation, the 7 raiders in the lead, with the Dreadnought and the Union Black Ops vessel hanging back. "They're being cautious," Marcus observed from his position on one of the gunboats. "They remember what happened at Vesta." "Good," Jack replied. "That means they'll be looking for the same tricks. We'll give them something new." As the Recti fleet approached Hygeia, they split into 3 groups, a standard envelopment tactic designed to cut off escape routes. Jack watched as they moved precisely according to Union military doctrine. Whoever was commanding them knew their business. "Eliza, status on the mining drones?" Jack asked. "All 30 drones in position, powered down to minimal signatures," came the reply. "Ready to activate on your mark." Jack waited until the lead group of Recti raiders was halfway between his position and Hygeia. Now, across the battlefield, 30 mining drones suddenly powered up. These machines, normally used to break up asteroids for processing, had been modified according to Jack's specifications. Instead of their usual mining lasers, they now carried the gravitational disruptors, not just the 6 Jack had used at Vesta, but 30 new ones fabricated by Hygeia's engineers based on his design. The drones accelerated toward the Recti ships, moving in erratic patterns that made them difficult to target. The pirate fleet responded immediately, opening fire with their superior weapons. Several drones were destroyed in seconds, but the rest closed the distance rapidly. "All militia ships execute Maneuver Alpha," Jack ordered. The Belt ships that had appeared to be evacuating Hygeia suddenly changed course, moving to positions that had been carefully calculated to be just outside the effective range of the Recti weapons. They began firing, not to hit the enemy ships, but to herd them toward the prepared killing zones. The first wave of drones reached the lead group of Recti raiders and detonated their disruptors. Space warped around the pirate ships as localized. Gravity wells formed and collapsed in rapid succession. 2 raiders were caught directly in the effect, their hulls buckling under stresses they were never designed to withstand. "Second wave, go," Jack ordered. Another group of drones activated, these heading for the second group of Recti ships. The pirates had learned from the first attack and began evasive maneuvers, exactly as Jack had predicted. Their evasion took them directly into one of the box canyons, a dense field of asteroid fragments that limited their mobility. "Miners 3 and 7 spring the trap," Jack said calmly. 2 mining ships that had been hiding among the asteroid fragments suddenly powered up and fired their mining charges, not at the Recti ships directly, but at the larger asteroids surrounding them. The explosions sent thousands of fragments hurtling toward the pirates, a deadly shrapnel storm in the vacuum of space. 1 raider was shredded immediately. 2 more suffered significant damage. The remaining ships attempted to retreat, only to find their escape route cut off by more Belt ships that had moved into position. "They're adapting," Zoe warned. "The Dreadnought is moving up to support the Raiders, Jack had expected this. Execute Maneuver Beta. The militia ships that had been harassing the third group of Recti raiders suddenly broke off, appearing to retreat in disarray. It was another lure, and the pirates took it, pursuing what they thought were easy kills. Hygeia station now, Jack ordered. The supposedly crippled station suddenly came to life. The atmosphere venting stopped, and all lights returned to full power. More importantly, concealed ports on the station's surface opened to reveal a series of makeshift mass drivers, similar to those on Vesta, but modified by Eliza's team to be even more powerful. The mass drivers fired in sequence, launching projectiles, not at the pursuing raiders, but at a cluster of small asteroids that had been carefully positioned days earlier. The impact sent the asteroids tumbling directly into the path of the pursuing Recti ships. 2 more raiders were caught in the artificial asteroid field, one losing an engine nacelle to a direct impact. The dreadnought is changing course, Zoe reported. It's heading straight for Hygeia, bypassing our traps. Jack had anticipated this as well. Time for the main event. All ships converge on the dreadnought. Eliza, activate the final surprise. As the Belt militia ships moved to intercept the dreadnought, Eliza activated her final surprise, the station's water purification system, modified to expel its entire reserve in one massive jet. In the vacuum of space, the water instantly froze into a cloud of ice crystals, creating a glittering fog that played havoc with sensors and targeting systems. The dreadnought plowed into the ice cloud, momentarily blind. When it emerged, it found itself surrounded by the entire Belt militia fleet, all weapons trained on its position. Attention Recti dreadnought, Jack broadcast on all frequencies. This is Sheriff Jack Holden. Your raiders are disabled or scattered. You're surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. There was a long pause. Then a voice responded. Not the chittering sound of a Recti, but a human voice, cold and precise. This is Commander Reeves, of Union Special Operations. You are interfering with a classified security operation, Sheriff. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. Jack's suspicions were confirmed. He switched to a private channel to his militia captains. Hold positions. Do not fire unless fired upon. Back on the open channel, he addressed Reeves. Funny. Think about consequences, Commander. Out here in the Belt, they tend to fall on everyone equally. Your pirates have been raiding civilian colonies, killing innocent people. That makes you an accessory to murder in my jurisdiction. Your jurisdiction, Reeves laughed. The Belt is Union territory, Sheriff. Your badge is just a courtesy appointment. Tell that to the families of the dead at Juno and Palace, Jack replied, his voice hard. Now power down your weapons or we'll do it for you. To emphasize his point, several militia ships fired warning shots that passed just over the dreadnoughts. Hull, you're making a mistake, Holden, Reeves warned. The Union will not forget this. Neither will the Belt, Jack answered. Now make your choice. The standoff lasted another 30 seconds. Then slowly, the dreadnought's weapon systems began powering down. A wise decision, Jack said. Marcus, take your boarding team and secure that ship. I want Commander Reeves and any Union personnel in custody, and find out what happened to the original crew of the Vigilant. As the militia ships moved in to secure the dreadnought, Jack noticed a small, fast-moving signature, breaking away from the battlefield, the Black Ops vessel, using the confusion to escape. Zoe, track that ship, he ordered. I want to know where it goes. Already on it, she replied, but it's using stealth systems. We'll lose it once it's out of the immediate area. Jack nodded. He'd expected as much. Whoever had authorized this operation wouldn't be caught easily. But he had Reeves, and that was a start. The Battle of Hygeia, as it would later be called, was over. The Belt militia had faced a superior force and emerged victorious, not through overwhelming firepower, but through knowledge of their territory and unconventional tactics, just like the frontier lawmen of Earth's Old West. As Jack guided the battered Mustang toward the captured dreadnought, he allowed himself a small smile. The Union had forgotten one of the oldest lessons in human history: never underestimate people fighting for their homes. Holy smokes, what an epic battle at Hygeia. Jack really knows how to use the territory to his advantage against vastly superior forces. Are you enjoying this blend of Western and sci-fi? Let us know in the comments what you thought of Jack's strategy against the recti. And if you don't want to miss the upcoming chapters of this space adventure, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. We've still got plenty of action ahead. The captured dreadnought Vigilant hung in orbit around Ceres, its once proud Union markings now partially restored beneath the hastily painted-over recti symbols. Jack stood on the observation deck of Ceres Station, looking out at the massive vessel through the reinforced viewport. It had been 2 weeks since the Battle of Hygeia, and the Belt was buzzing with the news of their victory. "You've become quite the folk hero, Sheriff," said Director Alvarez, the highest-ranking Union official in the Belt. She had arrived 3 days ago on an emergency fact-finding mission after news of the battle had reached Earth. "The colonists are calling it the Hygeia standoff. There are already songs being composed." Jack didn't turn from the viewport. "Not interested in fame, Director. Just doing my job." "Your job," Alvarez repeated, a hint of steel entering her voice. "Your job was to maintain basic law and order among the mining operations, not to raise a militia and engage in combat with what you claim were Union Black Ops forces." Now Jack did turn, fixing the director with a level gaze. "What I claim? You've interviewed Commander Reeves yourself. You've seen the evidence we recovered from the vigilance systems." Alvarez waved a hand dismissively. "Reeves is clearly delusional. The official investigation has already determined that he went rogue, stole the Vigilant during its decommissioning process, and formed an alliance with the recti on his own initiative. A tragic case of PTSD and space psychosis, nothing more." Jack almost laughed. The cover-up was so transparent it was almost insulting. "And I suppose the Phantom-class ship that escaped just happened to be stolen as well." "There is no such thing as a Phantom-class ship in the Union inventory," Alvarez replied smoothly. "Now, about your militia. The Union Council is deeply concerned about armed colonists taking matters into their own hands. All privately armed vessels must be disarmed immediately, per Union Security Directive 47B. "That's not going to happen," Jack said flatly. "The Belt defended itself when the Union wouldn't. Those ships stay armed until we have guarantees of proper protection." Alvarez's professional smile tightened. "I don't think you understand your position, Sheriff. Your actions, while perhaps well-intentioned, have created a diplomatic incident with the Recti Confederation. They're claiming that humans attacked their peaceful trading vessels." "Peaceful?" Jack couldn't keep the incredulity from his voice. "They killed over 200 colonists in their raids." "Alleged raids," Alvarez corrected, "without proper Union investigation. These remain unverified incidents." Jack studied the woman before him. Alvarez was the perfect bureaucrat, immaculately dressed in a Union diplomatic uniform, not a silver hair out of place, expression carefully calibrated to project authority without aggression, and she was lying through her teeth. "What exactly—" "Are you here for Director?" Jack asked bluntly. Alvarez's smile returned colder than before. "I'm here to restore order, Sheriff. The Union is prepared to offer the Belt colonies enhanced protection, a permanent security fleet, military-grade defense systems, the works. In exchange, we simply require compliance with standard Union resource allocation protocols and administrative oversight." And there it was, the real agenda. Use the recti to terrorize the Belt, then swoop in with the solution, complete with strings attached that would bind the independent colonies firmly under Union control. "I'll take your proposal to the colony representatives," Jack said, knowing full well what their answer would be. "Do that," Alvarez replied. "In the meantime, I'm afraid I must temporarily suspend your authority as sheriff pending review of your actions. Please surrender your badge and sidearm." Jack's hand moved instinctively to the revolver at his hip. "This was my father's. It doesn't belong to the Union." "The weapon has been modified with restricted technology," Alvarez countered. "It's illegal under Union arms regulations." For a moment, tension crackled between them like static electricity. Then, Jack slowly unholstered the revolver and placed it on the table between them, followed by his badge. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "No, Sheriff, or should I say Mr. Holden, you made the mistake when you decided to play hero." Alvarez picked up the badge but left the revolver on the table. Consider yourself lucky. Others in your position would be facing criminal charges. As she turned to leave, she added over her shoulder, "Oh, and the Union Council has appointed an interim sheriff to replace you, someone with a proper understanding of chain of command. I believe you know Marcus Chen from Vesta." The door slid shut behind her, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts and the view of the captured dreadnought. He waited 5 minutes, counting the seconds in his head, before picking up his revolver and returning it to its holster. Alvarez had left it deliberately, a small mercy, or more likely, a calculated move to avoid creating a martyr over something as symbolic as a family heirloom. His comm unit buzzed. "Jack, we need to talk," came Zoe's voice, pitched low and urgent. "Not over comms. Meet me at Kowalski's in 20 minutes." Kowalski's bar occupied a cramped space in Ceres Station's oldest section, where the corridors were narrower and the ceiling lower, a relic from the early days of colonization when every cubic meter of pressurized space was precious. The clientele was exclusively Belt natives and long-term colonists. Union officials and fresh arrivals from Earth knew better than to intrude on this particular watering hole. Jack slipped in through the side entrance, nodding to the owner, a burly ex-miner with a cybernetic left arm and a perpetual scowl. Kowalski returned the nod and tilted his head toward a booth in the back corner where Zoe sat with Eliza Wong and, surprisingly, Marcus Chen. "Traitors here," Kowalski muttered as Jack passed the bar. "He's not a traitor," Jack replied quietly. "He's doing what he thinks is right." When Jack reached the booth, Marcus stood up, his expression a mixture of defiance and shame. "Jack, Save it," Jack cut him off, sliding into the booth. "You took the job. I get it. Someone has to keep..." "Order? It's not that simple," Marcus protested. "Alvarez gave me an ultimatum. Either I take the position or she brings in someone from Earth who doesn't know the Belt or its people. At least this way, I can try to mitigate the damage." Jack studied his friend's face and saw the truth there. "All right, so why the secret meeting?" Zoe glanced around before leaning in. "We've got problems, big ones. First, Alvarez has ordered the Vigilant to be towed back to Mars for proper investigation. All the evidence we gathered will disappear. Second," Eliza continued, "they're already moving in Union security forces to protect the major settlements. 3 cruisers arrived at Vesta this morning. They're installing weapons systems that can be turned inward as easily as outward. And third," Marcus added, his voice barely above a whisper, "they've put a bounty on your head, Jack." That caught him by surprise. "A bounty? On what charges?" "Officially theft of Union property and unauthorized use of restricted technology," Marcus replied. "But the real reason is they want you gone. You're a symbol now. The Belt is rallying around Sheriff Holden, who stood up to the Union. How much?" Jack asked, a wry smile touching his lips. 50,000 credits, Zoe answered. "Dead or alive, though the posting strongly implies they prefer the former." Jack let out a low whistle. "I'm flattered." "This isn't funny, Jack," Eliza snapped. "Bounty hunters are already arriving. I counted 3 ships docking this morning with known mercenary registrations. And there's more," Marcus said. "Commander Reeves was found dead in his cell yesterday. Suicide, according to the official report." Jack's smile vanished. "Convenient." "They're cleaning house," Zoe said, "eliminating anyone who knows the truth." "About the Vrektai operation?" Jack leaned back, considering their options. "What about the Belt militia?" "Disbanded by Union executive order," Marcus replied. "Any ships that refuse to disarm are being designated as pirate vessels." "And the colonists? What are they saying?" "They're angry," Eliza said, "but also scared. The Union is offering protection and stability. After the Vrektai attacks, many are willing to trade some independence for security." "The oldest trick in the book," Jack muttered. The group fell silent as a server droid approached, deposited 4 glasses of amber liquid on the table and retreated. Jack took a sip. Real whiskey, not the synthetic stuff usually served. Kowalski was breaking out the good stock. "So what's the plan?" Zoe finally asked. "You can't stay on Ceres. They'll find you eventually." Jack nodded. "I need to disappear. For a while, but first, I need to make a few modifications to this." He patted the revolver at his side. Eliza raised an eyebrow. What kind of modifications? The kind that might give me an edge against whatever they send after me. Jack turned to Marcus. As the new sheriff, you'll have access to the evidence lockup. There's a recti energy modulator we confiscated last year. I need it. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. I can get it to you, but what are you planning to do with it? Jack took another sip of whiskey. The Union thinks they've won. They've created a crisis, offered a solution, and now they're consolidating control. Standard playbook. But they've overlooked something important. What's that? Zoe asked. The belt isn't just a collection of rocks and stations, it's a state of mind. Out here, we've always had to rely on ourselves, make do with what we have, find unconventional solutions. Jack leaned forward. The old lawmen of the frontier didn't have armies behind them. They had knowledge of the territory, the support of the community, and the will to stand up for what's right. That's inspirational, Eliza said dryly, but it doesn't exactly address the cruisers with military-grade weapons. No, Jack agreed, but this might. He pulled a small data chip from his pocket and placed it on the table. Everything we recovered from the Vigilant, every communication between Reeves and his Union handlers, every order to support the recti raids, every casualty report they tried to cover up. Zoe's eyes widened. You made a copy. Multiple copies, Jack confirmed. This needs to get to the independent news networks on Mars and Earth. The Union can control the official channels, but they can't silence everyone. Marcus picked up the chip, turning it over in his fingers. This is treason, you know. Only if you believe the Union has the right to sacrifice Belt colonists for political gain, Jack replied evenly. After a moment, Marcus pocketed the chip. I'll see that it gets to the right people. Good. Jack finished his whiskey and stood. I need to move. The longer I stay in one place, the more danger I put everyone in. Where will you go? Zoe asked. Jack smiled. Better if you don't know, but I'll be around. The Belt's a big place with a lot of hiding spots. Eliza stood as well. I'll help with the modifications to your revolver. I have a workshop in the lower levels where we can work undisturbed. As they prepared to leave, Marcus caught Jack's arm. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about taking your job. Jack clasped his friend's shoulder. Keep our people safe, Sheriff. That's all that matters. 3 days later, Jack Holden was officially a wanted man throughout Union space. His face appeared on security bulletins across the system, accompanied by warnings about his dangerous and unstable nature. The bounty had been increased to 75,000 credits. Jack watched the announcement from the cockpit of a small unmarked shuttle he'd acquired through channels best left unmentioned. The Mustang was too recognizable now, reluctantly abandoned in a maintenance bay on Ceres. His new vessel had none of his old ship's character or modifications, but it had one crucial advantage: anonymity. In his lap lay the revolver, now significantly altered. Eliza had outdone herself, integrating the recti energy modulator into the weapon's existing systems. The six-shooter could now fire charges that disrupted energy shields, disabled electronic systems, or created localized electromagnetic pulses, in addition to its standard plasma rounds. It was the perfect weapon for a man who needed to disable rather than kill, to create diversions rather than destruction. As he plotted a course toward the outer belt, Jack's comm unit, a secure, untraceable model provided by Zoe, chimed with an incoming message. 3 bounty hunters left Ceres this morning, came Zoe's voice, distorted by encryption. Professional types with military backgrounds. They're heading for Palace first. They must have information suggesting you went that way. Good, Jack replied. Let them chase shadows. There's more, the data is spreading. Independent networks on Mars have started asking questions about the recti incidents. The Union is scrambling to control the narrative. Jack nodded to himself. Keep pushing. The truth is our best weapon. Be careful, Jack. These aren't just bounty hunters after you. I've intercepted communications suggesting Union Black Ops involvement. The Phantom ship? Possibly. Just watch your back. After ending the transmission, Jack leaned back in the pilot's seat and gazed out at the star-speckled blackness. Somewhere out there, the forces that had orchestrated the recti attacks were regrouping, planning their next move. They had resources, official backing, and the ability to operate in the open. All he had was a modified revolver, a nondescript shuttle, and a lifetime of knowledge about the belt's hidden places. It would have to be enough. Jack Holden, former sheriff of the Asteroid Belt, was now an outlaw in the very territory he'd sworn to protect. The irony wasn't lost on him. Many of the legendary lawmen from Earth's frontier days had found themselves on both sides of the law at various points in their careers. As he engaged the shuttle's engines and set course for a small unmapped mining outpost where he knew he could find temporary shelter, Jack checked his revolver one last time. 6 shots. In the stories he'd grown up with, that had always been enough for the heroes of the Wild West. Out here in the Wild Black, he would make it enough for him too. The abandoned mining facility on Eunomia hadn't seen human activity in over a decade. Once a promising operation extracting rare earth metals, it had been hastily evacuated during a radiation storm and never reoccupied. The Union had written, "It offers a loss, too small to be worth the reclamation costs." For Jack Holden, it was the perfect hideout. He'd been on the run for 3 months now, moving between forgotten outposts and derelict stations, staying one step ahead of the bounty, hunters and Union operatives on his trail. The modified revolver at his hip had saved his life more times than he cared to count, its specialized rounds disabling pursuit ships and creating distractions when a quick escape was needed. Jack stood at the viewport of the facility's control room, gazing out at the cratered surface of the asteroid. His untraceable comm unit chimed, the special tone he'd assigned to Zoe's encrypted channel. "Jack, we have a situation," her voice came through, tense but controlled. "The data we released has gained traction. Independent media on Mars and Earth are demanding investigations into the Recti incidents. Public opinion is turning against the Union's occupation of the belt." "That's good news," Jack replied, running a hand through his beard. "A new addition to help disguise his appearance. So what's the problem?" "The Union is accelerating their timetable. They're implementing full resource control measures next week instead of the gradual approach they promised. And they've brought in military contractors to supplement their security forces." Jack frowned. "They're getting desperate." "There's more," Zoe continued. "We've identified the commander of the Black Ops division behind the Recti operation. Admiral Victoria Reeves." "Reeves?" Jack's eyebrows shot up. "Any relation to our dead commander?" "His sister. And she's taken a personal interest in your case. She arrived in the belt yesterday aboard the Phantom-class ship we saw at Hygeia." Jack's mind raced. This changed everything. "Where is she now?" "That's the other reason I'm calling. Our sources indicate she's heading to Eunomia." "Jack, they've found you." He glanced at the facility's security monitors. "Nothing yet, but it was only a matter of time." "How? This place isn't even on current maps." "We don't know, but you need to move. Marcus has arranged an extraction. There's a mining shuttle leaving from—" "No," Jack interrupted. "If Reeves is coming herself, this is our chance." "Chance for what? To get yourself killed?" Zoe's voice rose in frustration. "She'll have a full tactical team with her." "Exactly. The head of the snake is exposing herself. If we can capture her, get her to confess to the operation, the Union can't cover it up anymore." "That's suicide, Jack." He smiled grimly. "Maybe. But sometimes the sheriff has to make a stand." He checked his revolver, ensuring all 6 chambers were loaded with their specialized rounds. "I need you to do something for me. Contact every independent news outlet in the system. Tell them there's going to be a showdown on Eunomia, and they won't want to miss it." "Jack, trust me, Zoe, it's time to finish this." After ending the transmission, Jack moved quickly through the abandoned facility, setting up the defenses he'd prepared for just such an occasion. The old mining complex was a maze of tunnels, processing chambers and storage areas, perfect for the strategy he had in mind. He'd spent weeks studying the facility's systems, restoring power to critical sections and rigging others with surprises for unwelcome visitors. Now he activated the final preparations, checking each element carefully. The electromagnetic field generators salvaged from Hygeia were positioned at key junctions, ready to create localized gravity distortions similar to his disruptors, but on a larger scale. The facility's old ore processing equipment had been repurposed to create choke points and deadfalls, and most importantly, the central control room had been modified to broadcast on all frequencies when the time came. Jack's shuttle was hidden in a maintenance bay, prepped for a quick escape if things went sideways. But he didn't plan on running this time. As the old saying went, sometimes you had to stand your ground. 3 hours later, the facility's perimeter sensors alerted him to approaching vessels. Jack watched on the monitors as a sleek black ship, unmistakably the Phantom-class vessel, from Hygeia, settled onto the landing pad outside the main entrance. It was accompanied by 2 military-grade shuttles that took up flanking positions. "Right on time," Jack muttered, activating the facility's external cameras. The Phantom's airlock cycled open, and a tall woman in a black Union Admiral's uniform stepped out. Even from the grainy security feed, Jack could see the family resemblance to Commander Reeves. She had the same sharp features and cold, calculating eyes. Behind her came 12 operatives in tactical gear, armed with military-grade weapons. Jack opened a channel to the landing pad. "Welcome to Eunomia, Admiral Reeves. I've been expecting you." The Admiral paused, then looked directly at the nearest camera. "Sheriff Holden, or should I say Fugitive Holden, I'm impressed you've evaded capture this long." "I know the territory better than your hired guns," Jack replied. "Just like I know what you did, using the recti to terrorize Belt colonies so the Union could swoop in and take control." Reeves smiled thinly. "Allegations without proof, from a disgraced lawman with delusions of grandeur. Surrender now, and I'll ensure you receive a fair trial." "That's generous, considering the dead or alive bounty you put on my head. A regrettable necessity. You've become something of a folk hero to the Belt separatists. Bad for stability." Jack watched as she signaled her team to move toward the entrance. "I'm curious, Admiral. Was your brother a willing participant in your scheme, or just another pawn to be sacrificed when convenient?" A flash of genuine emotion crossed Reeves's face, anger quickly suppressed. "My brother was a patriot who understood that sometimes difficult choices must be made for the greater good. His death was unfortunate." "You mean his murder," Jack corrected. "Just like the murders of 200 colonists in the raids you orchestrated." Reeves ignored the accusation. "You have nowhere to run, Holden. This facility is surrounded. My operatives are entering as we speak. Make this easy on yourself." Jack checked the internal sensors. 3 teams of 4 operatives each were indeed making their way through different entrances to the facility. Exactly as he'd anticipated. "I think I'll take my chances," he said, then cut the transmission. Jack moved to the center of the control room and drew his revolver. The first team of operatives would reach the main processing chamber in approximately 2 minutes. Time to begin. He activated the first set of electromagnetic field generators. In the processing chamber, gravity suddenly shifted, sending the approaching operatives tumbling as the localized field disrupted their sense of up and down. Their curses echoed through the facility's comm system. "What the hell was that?" one of them shouted. "Some kind of gravity distortion," another replied. "Watch your step, the whole place could be rigged." Jack smiled, they had no idea. The second team approached the old refinery section, moving more cautiously after hearing their colleagues' confusion. Jack waited until they were halfway across the main floor, then activated the modified ore sorters. The massive machines whirred to life, their conveyor systems creating a moving maze that separated the operatives from each other. "We're being herded," the team leader realized too late. "Fall back!" But Jack had already sealed the exits, forcing them to navigate the constantly shifting pathways of the activated machinery. The third team, led by Reeves herself, was taking a more direct route through the administrative section toward the control room. They moved with professional precision, checking corners and securing rooms as they advanced. Jack holstered his revolver and moved to the secondary control station he'd prepared. It was time for the main event. As Reeves and her team approached the final corridor leading to the control room, Jack activated the broadcast system he'd rigged throughout the facility and to the external communications array. "This is Jack Holden, former sheriff of the Asteroid Belt, broadcasting live to all independent news networks in the system," he began, his voice echoing through the facility and transmitting across the belt. "I'm currently facing off against Admiral Victoria Reeves of Union Black Operations, the architect of the recti raids that killed hundreds of Belt colonists." In the corridor, Reeves froze, then spoke urgently into her comm. "Jam that transmission." "They're trying," Jack continued, "but this signal is being relayed through 7 different Belt communications satellites simultaneously, courtesy of friends who believe in the truth." He watched on the monitors as Reeves signaled her team to rush the control room. "I have evidence of the Union's involvement in these attacks, evidence that Admiral Reeves has come personally to silence. But before she reaches me, I want everyone listening to understand what really happened." Jack activated a subroutine that began broadcasting the data from the Vigilant, communications logs, mission orders, casualty reports, all streaming alongside his voice. The Union used the recti as proxies to attack Belt colonies, creating a crisis they could solve by imposing military control. They sacrificed innocent lives for political expediency, then murdered their own operatives to cover it up. On the monitor, Jack could see Reeves's face contorted with fury as she realized what was happening. Her team had reached the control room door and was preparing to breach. "Admiral Reeves is about to enter this room with the intention of killing me and destroying this evidence," Jack continued calmly. "But it's too late. The truth is already out there." The door exploded inward in a shower of metal and sparks. Jack drew his revolver as Reeves and 4 operatives stormed into the control room, weapons raised. "End transmission," Reeves shouted. "Now!" Jack stood his ground, revolver pointed at the floor. "It's over, Admiral. Every word of this conversation is still being broadcast. Every action you take now is being witnessed by millions across the system." Reeves glanced at the active transmission indicators, then back to Jack. Her expression shifted from anger to cold calculation. "Kill him," she ordered her operatives. "Equipment malfunction. Tragic accident." The operatives raised their weapons, but Jack was faster. He fired his first shot, a specialized EMP round that struck the floor between them. The pulse disabled their weapons and comms instantly, leaving them momentarily disoriented. His second shot hit the ceiling panel above them, triggering the gravity disruptor he'd installed there. Suddenly, the operatives were floating helplessly, their magnetic boots useless against the localized gravitational anomaly. Reeves, however, had reacted quickly, anchoring herself to a console. She drew a sidearm, an old-fashioned projectile weapon not affected by the EMP, and aimed it at Jack. "Impressive tricks, Sheriff," she said, her voice ice-cold. "But this ends now." Jack's third shot, a standard plasma round, struck her weapon, melting it into useless slag. She dropped it with a cry of pain as the heat seared her hand. "You're right about one thing," Jack replied. "This does end now." With his fourth shot, he disabled the main console, plunging the room into darkness except for the emergency lighting. In the red glow, he moved with the confidence of someone who knew every inch of the terrain, circling behind Reeves while she was still disoriented. "The Belt isn't just a resource to be exploited," Jack said, his voice echoing in the darkened room. "It's home to millions of people who deserve better than to be pawns in Union politics." Reeves spun around, trying to track his voice. "You naive fool. The Belt exists to serve Earth and Mars. The resources here are vital to the core worlds. A few thousand colonists are an acceptable cost." "Thank you for that confession, Admiral," Jack said, his voice now coming from directly behind her. "I'm sure the audience appreciated the clarity." Reeves realized too late that the broadcast was still active. She lunged toward Jack in the darkness, a hidden blade appearing in her hand. Jack fired his fifth shot, a stunning pulse that caught her mid-lunge, sending her crashing to the floor, paralyzed but conscious. Jack holstered his revolver, leaving one round still loaded. He activated the emergency lighting, illuminating the scene for the still broadcasting cameras, the Admiral and her team neutralized, and the former sheriff standing victorious. "This transmission has been witnessed throughout the system," Jack said, addressing the broadcast. "The evidence cannot be denied or covered up. I call on the Union Council to immediately investigate Admiral Reeves and all those involved in the recti operation." He looked directly into the camera. "To the people of the Belt, we've always had to fight for our place in the system. Today proves that when we stand together, even the most powerful forces can't silence the truth." As he ended the transmission, Jack knew his days as a fugitive were numbered. Either the Union would be forced to acknowledge the truth and clear his name, or they would double down and send even more forces after him. Either way, the Belt would never be the same. He looked down at the paralyzed form of Admiral Reeves, her eyes burning with hatred. "In the Old West on Earth," he told her, "when a corrupt official was caught red-handed, sometimes the townsfolk would put them on the first train out of town, with strict instructions never to return." Jack smiled. "Your ride should be arriving shortly. I hear Mars is nice this time of year, especially their maximum security military tribunal facilities." Outside, he could already hear the approaching engines of ships, likely a mixture of Union forces responding to Reeves' last communications and independent media vessels, racing to document the aftermath of the most dramatic standoff the Belt had ever seen. Jack Holden checked his revolver one last time, ensuring the sixth chamber remained loaded. A sheriff never knew when he might need that final shot, but for now, at least, justice had been served in the Asteroid Belt. 5 years after the Eunomia standoff, Jack Holden sat at the bar of the newly renovated Kowalski's, nursing a glass of genuine Earth whiskey. The place had changed, expanded into the adjacent compartments with better lighting and actual windows, looking out at Ceres' cratered surface. But the clientele remained the same: Belt natives, miners, and those who called the asteroid frontier home. "Your usual, Sheriff?" Kowalski asked, his cybernetic arm gleaming with recent upgrades as he wiped down the counter. Jack nodded, still not entirely comfortable with the title he'd reclaimed 3 years ago. After the broadcast from Eunomia went system-wide, public, opinion had forced the Union to conduct a genuine investigation. Admiral Reeves had been convicted of conspiracy, unauthorized military action, and multiple counts of murder. The evidence Jack had preserved from the Vigilant had been damning. The door slid open, admitting a blast of recycled station air and the sound of a docking announcement. A tall figure in a Union diplomatic uniform entered, drawing curious glances from the regulars. Jack didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Director Chen," he said, raising his glass slightly. "Slumming it with the Belt rats today?" Marcus Chen, now the Union's Director of Outer System Affairs, slid onto the stool beside him. "Official business, actually. The Belt Autonomy Treaty is ready for final signatures. The Council wanted me to personally invite you to the ceremony. It's on Mars next month." Jack took a sip of whiskey. "I'm not much for ceremonies." "No, but you are the symbol of Belt independence. Your presence would mean something." After the scandal broke, the Union had been forced to reconsider its approach to the Belt colonies. The new treaty acknowledged the Belt's right to self-governance while maintaining trade relationships with the inner planets, a compromise that had taken years of negotiation. "I'll think about it," Jack said, which both of them knew meant he would go, however, reluctantly. Marcus ordered a drink, and they sat in companionable silence for a moment. Through the viewport, they could see a wreck-tide trading vessel docking at one of Ceres' commercial bays, another change from 5 years ago. With the truth of the Union's manipulation exposed, diplomatic relations with the wreck-tide Confederation had been cautiously established. "Heard from Zoe lately?" Marcus asked. Jack nodded. "She's doing well. The Belt News Network is now the most trusted source of information in the outer system. She's talking about opening a bureau on Ganymede. And Eliza, still running the engineering core. Those gravity disruptors she refined based on my makeshift versions are now standard equipment on Belt patrol ships." Marcus smiled. "The famous Holden disruptors. I hear they're studying them at the Academy now." Jack snorted. "Just some old tricks, with new technology." The bar's door slid open again, and this time Jack did turn. A young recti entered, moving with the careful deliberation of someone still adjusting to human gravity settings. The insectoid alien was dressed in what appeared to be an approximation of human clothing, including what could only be described as a hat, wide-brimmed and eerily similar to Jack's own. The recti approached, its 4 arms making the formal, greeting gesture of its species before switching to the human handshake. "Sheriff Holden," it said, its voice translator rendering the chittering sounds into accented English. "I am Krivak, junior diplomatic attaché to the Ceres mission." Jack shook one of the offered hands. "What can I do for you, Krivak?" The Vrekti's compound eyes gleamed in the bar's light. "I have studied your conflict resolution methods extensively. The way you defeated superior forces through knowledge of terrain and unconventional tactics is fascinating." just doing. "My job," Jack replied, his standard response to any mention of his exploits. "I have a formal request," Krivak continued. "The Confederation wishes to establish a joint security force to patrol the belt alongside human authorities. I have been selected as the first recti candidate, and I request to train under your guidance." Jack blinked in surprise. "You want me to teach you to be a sheriff?" "Yes," the alien replied simply. "Your methods are effective. The old stories you base them on, Earp, Holiday, Masterson, I have studied them as well. There is wisdom there that transcends species." Marcus chuckled. "Looks like you're starting an academy, Jack." Jack studied the young recti, noting the earnest posture, the carefully chosen clothing, the attempt to bridge the gap between their species. 5 years ago, he'd been in a firefight with recti raiders. Now, one wanted to learn the code of the West from him. "It won't be easy," Jack warned. "The job's about more than just tactics. It's about knowing when to draw and when to talk, when to enforce the letter of the law, and when to understand its spirit." "I am prepared to learn," Krivak responded. "Our people share this region of space now. We should share the responsibility of protecting it." Jack finished his whiskey and set the glass down. His hand brushed against the revolver at his hip. Still the same modified six-shooter, still loaded with only 5 rounds as a reminder that the last resort should remain just that. "All right then," he said finally. "We'll start tomorrow. First, lesson. In the belt, just like in the old frontier, it's not about having the most firepower. It's about knowing the territory and standing your ground when it matters." As Krivak expressed enthusiastic gratitude, Jack caught Marcus's eye. The Union director raised his glass in a silent toast. They both understood what this moment represented, not just for Jack or for the eager young recti, but for the belt itself. The frontier was changing, evolving beyond the wild territory it had once been. But some things remained constant. The need for justice, the value of courage, and the power of standing up for what's right, even against impossible odds. Jack Holden, sheriff of the Asteroid Belt, had become more than just a lawman. He had become a legend, and now it seemed a teacher. As he began explaining the basics of frontier justice to the attentive alien, he couldn't help but think that the old heroes of the Wild West would have approved. After all, every frontier needed its sheriffs, no matter how far from Earth that frontier might be. And that concludes the saga of the Sheriff of the Asteroid Belt. What did you think of this story? Jack Holden managed to bring justice and change the fate of the entire solar system. What was your favorite part? The battle at Vesta? The final showdown at Eunomia? Or perhaps the epilogue with Krivak wanting to learn the ways of the Old West? Tell us in the comments. And if you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next stories. We have many more universes to explore together.